CardGamesTV1 Podcast. Multiple unisons is the way. Typically, just 3 different unisons is all you really need for your deck, because I've explained it before of why I have 3 different unisons in my deck, and of course why there's 12, right? 3 times 4 is 12, right? And I have played more unisons in a deck. I even played a 60 card unison deck. So clearly I'm a fan of unisons, and I definitely don't shy from using a lot of them. So the thing I've been noticing a lot lately is more players are incorporating more than 1 or 2 unisons. And I did notice for a while that there was people taking in an extra unison for an extra for an extra ability. So because for a long while I noticed that most players pick 1 unison and then they either play 4 copies of it, or they'll play like maybe 3 copies of the unison or something like that. But over time, noticing that people start putting in a couple more unisons. So, but the ratios they always try to keep the ratios low. So, I noticed that the magic number is like 6 to 8 when I've been using 12 for a long time, right? And I tend to go beyond that sometimes. Then I did this whole concept of 9 unison concept, where since I use 3 different unisons, you play 3 copies of each, plus an ultimate, so that would be a total of 10 cards, plus the 40 cards that I already use in the deck, so that's a total of 50 for a 50 card build. But I tend to go 53 when I do 4 copies of all the unisons, and I play 3 unisons, so 3 times 4 is 12, plus the ultimate, so that's 13 cards. 13 plus the 40 cards in the other 40 cards in the deck, so 53. So that's what I typically play. But I could always knock down the unisons, take off 1 off of each unison and bring it down to 9, so that way the deck is a lot thinner. If the idea is to thin out the deck, make it faster, deck winning type stuff. But what is ironic is to see people's ratios when it comes to unisons, is they'll max out on 1 unison and then they'll just play 2 copies of the other one, which will give them a ratio of 6 unisons in a deck. But recently I'm seeing people doing 8 unisons. So they'll pick 3 unisons, they'll max out on 1, so they'll play 4 copies of 1 unison, 2 of another one, and then 2 of another unison. So they'll end up having 3 different unisons in the decks, but it adds up to 8 slots in the deck. So they take up 8 slots in the deck for the unisons, which I understand, because they want space for their combo power cards and any other potential tech cards that they want to add into their deck, spice, or maybe they want a main deck of some floodgate or something. That's totally understandable, in case they don't want to have to side in, side out stuff. But anyway, it's just the fact that it was interesting to notice that more people are starting to play 3 different unisons in a deck. And of course, I've been doing it for a long time, and of course people have asked me, and I appreciate when people ask me, like they want to know why I do things. I'm more than glad to answer that and tell them. The thing that always tends to be obviously a problem is when they try to tell me something, right? As in, they try to tell me that I'm wrong of what I'm doing. Try to tell me that the way I play doesn't work, even though I have proven time again that it does, because I have gameplay of it. I remember there was a time where I didn't have gameplay at first, so some people were complaining, because well, we don't see no proof, right? We don't see you play, so how do we know these things you're saying works or they're true? And that's understandable, that's reasonable. For me, it's always, well, the way you would know if my ideas work or not is if you actually try them, right? I know they work because I have many years of experience playing card games in general. I played a lot of other card games, and I transferred that knowledge and skill over to this game, and then I do play the game. I do play against people, less now than before, but there was a time where I played Dragon Ball Super a lot. Those were good times. And I've, experimented. I tried different things. I try to wake, the whole letting my opponent deal me damage so I can awaken fast concept. Playing energy, ending my turn. Playing energy, ending my turn, not attacking my opponent. Waiting until like late game, like turn 6 or something, to start trying to swing at my opponent. I've tried it all, right? I tried different ways to play the game so that I can understand, right? Try and error, right? I've learned so many wrong ways to play the game because, it tends to bring up a lot more problems. Playing the game at a slow pace sucks. As in, turn 1, charge energy, end your turn. Turn 2, charge energy, end your turn. That's very boring, and I don't like that. That's one of the issues for me. It's hard to get off that habit of not attacking, right? So if there's a strategy like a leader or something, that the whole idea is not to attack, not to make plays until like maybe turn 4 or something. Not really my style. It's like, nah, I gotta do something turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. So I'm used to that. So it's hard to break that habit if the deck calls for it. So I remember one time playing a certain deck, and I was supposed to not attack with the deck, but immediately I just started attacking. And I immediately saw that, whoops, I forgot. I'm playing the deck wrong. I'm not supposed to be attacking. So I corrected myself in the next game after that, and played it the way, it was supposed to be played, the way I designed it to be played, which is you're not supposed to be attacking, and then it worked great, and I won that match. But it was just, the funniness of the idea of like, when you're used to something, you're used to it, right? Habits. Sometimes it's hard to break habits. Muscle memory, as they say, right? I'm so used to playing a certain way that it's like, it's just instinct. I just automatically do it. So when I create a game plan, whereas I'm not supposed to be attacking, I'm not supposed to be, aggro. I'm supposed to be, holding back and, waiting for my opponent to make to play, and then I react, and that's the way I'm supposed to play the deck, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's great to see people playing, three Unisons now. People seeing the value of more Unisons, or more options in Unisons in their decks than before. Because before, if they'll play just one, they'll choose one Unison to play in the deck, which probably is the Unison that comes from the archetype. If they're playing an archetype, they just grab the Unison, max it out, and that's it. 4 copies of that Unison, and that's how they play. But more players now are starting to see the value in having more options. Playing more than one, Unison, it gives you options in certain situations, certain matchups. And I've been doing that for a long time. I've been saying that for a long time, that, I have these, I have 3 different Unisons in my deck for the 3 different phases of the game, early game, mid game, late game. So I have one for each. And then they have their purposes, they have their uses. And I've even pointed out, certain cards that are equivalent. Like, I use this card, this Unison, instead of this Unison because of these reasons. They're similar in what they do, but their cost probably is what makes them different. Like, an example that would be the 3-drop SS3 Gogeta blue Unison. That's 20k dual attack. And then there's the 4-drop 20k Unison that's dual attack blocker, Gotank's absolute Unison. So there's the 4-drop, double, 20k double attacker, dual attacker, and then there's the 3-drop 20k dual attacker. Depending on the deck you're playing, it will determine which one you want to use. Because if you need the the dual attack, if you need a 20k dual attack, sooner than later, then the 3-drop Unison will be, the main, should be the option. You should, obviously try to play that over the 4-drop. But if you don't need the dual attack, on turn 3, then the 4-drop 20k dual attacker would be the option to go for, and that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of mindset I have. By default, I just always default to the 4-drop Gotenks. I do own the 3-drop 20k dual attack Gogeta, good card. It just, my go-to is, when it comes to a 3-drop, I go for Raditz Giant Force. So my 3-drop blue unison is Raditz, and then when it comes to 4-drop, it's Gotenks. So I'm just used to that. My 5-drop obviously is Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Protector of the Earth. But it depends on the situation, depends on what I need. I choose between the Goku, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Protector of the Earth, or Zeno Unison, as for board wipe, because the 5-drop Unison essentially is a board wipe, but it has a built-in floodgate. So, but the Zeno, it's a board wipe, but it can also be a ramp card. So that's their differences. They serve similar purposes, which is their board wipes for the cost of 5 essentially. But what separates them is the extra ability. Is one is a floodgate for defensive purposes, and the other one, just helps ramps, so it can help you speed up dropping something sooner than later, like an Android 17 turn tides, and winning that way, or something similar to that. So what else? That's why it's like I could have I depending on what I need for the deck, I can have the Zeno, right, which is board wipe but also is ramp. The Gotenks, which can potentially get rid of 2 battle cards, ignoring barrier, right? So technically, it's pseudo board wipe, right? It can help me clear the board. Plus, it's a 20k dual attack, and it's a blocker. So those are things that I got going for it. And then the Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Protector of the Earth, also being a board wipe, but also have the floodgate ability. And then both the Gotenks and the Goku Unison, they have draw abilities that you could use if need be. So there's that addedness to it. So those 3 cards, those 3 Unisons alone can give your deck a lot of power. Again, you have board wiping capabilities, you have drawing capabilities, among other potential options. Defensive floodgate, or the ramp ability, the defensive capabilities, right? Because an attacker, a blocker you can attack with, you can attack block every turn, right? So that's why it's important to have 3 different Unisons in a deck, because it gives you options for the 3 phases of the game: early game, mid game, and late game, right? So that's my reasoning for it, right? That's my game theory justification for it. But it's ironic that a lot of people for a long while just didn't agree with it. I understand if they didn't like the ratio and they pointed out that and gave me a different ratio. I think one person did. So let's say like 9 people have an issue, or even 10 people have an issue with me, having a lot of Unisons in my deck. But out of those 10 people, only one person actually mentioned something about ratio, like about how many I should be using, like how many copies, as opposed to just saying, oh, you have too many Unisons, the deck's bad, or some dumb shit like that doesn't help nobody. It's like that's not helpful, telling me that I'm playing too many Unisons. Why don't you give me something that I can use, something I can implement? I can't implement nothing by you saying that my deck's trash. It's like I can't do anything to make it not trash, right? As in, because I don't even know why you said it was trash, right? I don't know what constitutes it as it being trash. It's like, what makes it trash? You need to be specific. You need to be able to describe it. That's the weird thing you see on the internet a lot, that people will have an opinion, right? They'll say something. They're like, you know what? I feel like this needs to be said, so I'm gonna say that this deck is trash. Okay, but you don't have nothing to back it up. You don't prove that it is. There's some people that will argue with me before about when I pointed out, like, okay, well, where's the proof? Have you tried it? I don't need to try it. I can just tell just by looking at it. It's like, no, you can't. No, you can't. There's a reason why you're watching this video in the first place, because you didn't know what was going to be in the deck in the video until you watched it. So you don't know what you should be able to know prior, right? It's like you now watch the video, so now you know what's in the deck, but then now you think you know the capabilities of the deck just by looking at it. It's like, no, you have to try it, and then you'll see the capabilities. You'll see it you'll see it in action. You'll see why the deck is built the way it does. All you're doing is just looking at the deck and just be like, not enough shiny cards in it, right? Not enough SPRs, not enough, guy stealing trucks, no super combos, this and that. You're just looking for things that you like to play, you're used to, and if you don't see enough of those cards in my list, then you constitute that as the deck's bad. And it's like, okay, bad for you based off of your experience, but not bad in reality or my experience. If I'm putting a deck deck list out there into the world, it's because it is good. It works for me. The thing is, if you're interested in it working for you, you're interested in using my decks, then copy them, go use them, try them out. There was a time where people always tried out my ideas. There was one time, just like one time, but this was in Yu-Gi-Oh! One time that I can recall that someone was like, they were like, I literally, I copied the deck card for card. I tried it out, and I was having issues with it, right? They were like, I kept playing it and I kept losing. It's like, okay, at least you tried it. So you saying that the deck's not good, comes from comes from fact. Okay, so it is. So the deck's not good per se. Like, okay, you're losing with the deck. All right, that's fair. I can respect that. All right, you're losing with the deck. So then what I did was I asked questions about certain things that they were doing. It's like, did you do this, do you that? Like, I was questioning them on basically on how they were playing the deck, and I asked some basic questions that any player who plays Yu-Gi-Oh should know and understand if they're actually good at the game. And it just can't boil down to the fact that they actually are not that good at the game. They're very inexperienced. And it's like, well, there's the problem. It's not the deck that is why you're losing. You're losing because you're actually not that good at the game. You just started playing the game, 2 weeks ago, and you think you're going to be like top tier, like you're going to be a pro level player. Like, you just started playing 2 weeks ago, and then you copy my deck and you're losing. It's like, yeah, you're losing because you're losing. It's not the deck. I have many years of experience, so I wasn't losing with the deck. I wasn't having those issues. Part of the issue. Oh yeah, one of the things that I was able to prove that it was them that was losing, not the deck, was how they used it, because the deck was an OTK deck, so the deck wins in one turn. The thing was that what they did was they kept the problem was they kept trying to do the combo, the OTK, but they kept trying to do it when their opponent was able to stop them. When the opponent had back roll, the opponent had a response, even though the deck has cards to get rid of your opponent's cards, so that way they can't respond. Which is what you're supposed to do, is get rid of those cards first and then play the combo. This person was so busy trying to do the combo that they didn't prepare to properly do it, to do it where their opponent couldn't stop them. They kept doing it when their opponent had the ability to stop them. And it's like, see, there's the problem. See, it's not the deck, it's you. You keep playing the combo at the wrong time. As soon as you have the cards to do the combo, you immediately try to do it, even though your opponent can stop you. That's why you're losing. You're not losing because the deck doesn't work. You're losing because you keep using the deck wrong. You're using it at the wrong time. You keep trying to win at a point in time where you can't win with the combo because your opponent can stop you. That's the only way you typically lose, is when your opponent doesn't let you win, right? So it's up to you as a player to prevent your opponent from preventing you from winning. It's all about preventing things. It's all about preventing and doing, right? Prevent your opponent from winning, and you need to do the things to win, right? Your opponent's job is to prevent you from winning. Your job is to prevent them from winning. The other job you have is to prevent them from preventing you, and vice versa, right? It's their job to prevent you from preventing them, right? The irony. That's the thing. It's like those two things are important. You need to try to stop your opponent from stopping you, and try to succeed in doing the things you want to do. You know what I mean? So, trying to give an example. Obviously, like if you have the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta Rise of the Warrior, Super Warrior, right? And you play him, and you try to ramp up the 4 energy, and then the next turn you're gonna play something, like maybe like Android 17 turn ties and go for game. It's a good strategy and all, but if you don't pay attention and your opponent has a blue unison with 2 more markers on it, and they clearly have Gasio and Trunks in their hand, and you just play the card and get Gasio and Trunks, well, that's on you. You should have prepared. You should have made sure they couldn't God Seal you, but you allow them to God Seal you. So it's not the deck's the problem. It's your decision. It's you. You allow your opponent to stop you. You're not supposed to let them stop you. Part of while you're playing, one of the things you're supposed to do is try to make sure your opponent can't stop you. This is why you make sure your opponent is tapped out so they can't play negates that require energy. Obviously, free negates is an exception, like Hatchiak and whatnot. But make sure they're tapped out so they can't play negates to stop you. Definitely make sure they're tapped out so they can't use a battle card that has 10k combo power that costs 1 energy. Definitely want to prevent that, right? And even a card that has an active battle ability that costs energy to do something on your turn. You want to prevent them from being able to do things on your turn with their energy. So that's why you wait until they're tapped out before you try to go for game or do anything important, like play a battle card, right? That doesn't have deflect, for example, right? So there's that. Make sure they have no blocker, so they can't block your finishing attacks, right? Can't block you from dealing damage. Make sure the hand size is smaller than yours, or just small in general, so it'd be harder for them to out combo. So you want to mitigate the possibility of them comboing out of your attacks. So these are the things you're supposed to do. You're supposed to make sure you prevent your opponent from blocking, negating, and out comboing you. That's your responsibility as a player. If you want to win, those are the 3 things you got to do. Is prevent them from blocking, negating, and out comboing you. So, what else was I want to say? Mainly, this is all about the whole unison thing. I like seeing more people playing more unisons. More so, they're using more individual unisons as opposed to playing more copies of unisons per se. Because people are still maxing out on 8. That's like the standard ratio for everybody else. Everybody else likes to stop at 8 unisons. Me, I still play I still play 12 unisons. Because 12 is the way for me. There was obviously there was a thing at one time, people memeing 12 unisons is the way. So yeah, it is for me anyway. It has been working for a long time. But after a while, I started, being a little bit more, thinking more, because I'm always trying to streamline. I'm always trying to improve upon a concept. So it's like, yes, 3 unisons definitely works. But do I really have to have 12 unisons? Could I get away with 9 unisons, right? So then that's why I started doing the whole 9 unison concept, where I pick 3 unisons and I play 3 copies of each. I'm the type of player that likes maxing out. I like to have the full amount of copies of whatever card I'm using. Because the thing is, for me, is that if I choose a card, it's a good card. So I'm going to max it out. I'm going to have 4 copies or 3 copies depending on the game I'm playing, because it's that important. That's the thing. Like when I choose cards, they're important. I don't just like, oh, this card looks nice and just throw it in the deck, right? No, it's like if I choose the card, it's important. So it's so important that I have to have 4 copies or the maximum amount of copies I'm allowed to have. Which is why typically that even if I don't need 12 Unisons in a deck, I still will have it, right? Just because these Unisons are that good. But logically, I could slim them down. So if I need to slim down the deck, then the Unisons will be my go-to card type in a deck that I would slim down. I wouldn't slim down extra cards per se, unless like it's a field card where I only play 1 copy of a field card or something. So Unisons are the ones where I typically play around with the ratios, but everything else is usually I max it out on 4. Field cards maybe 1, if the deck needs it, and obviously ultimate will be 1 because it's an ultimate. But that's usually it. Other than that, everything is just 4 copies of everything. And I make sure that those cards that I play, that I'm maxing out 4 copies are that important. They're so important that I don't need 2 copies of this card and 2 copies of that. You know what I mean? Like I do like the super combo split concept where everybody been doing 2 of this super combo, 2 of this other super combo. Like I like that. I like that people are splitting it up, understanding that that it's nice to have options, right? But you don't want to. Well, one, you can't have more than 4 super combos anyway, so it's not like you have 4 of one super combo, 4 of another, right? So you can only have a maximum of 4. So splitting it up 2-2 or 1-1-1, right? And have 4 different super combos that fit your deck's color. Is the way to go. So you can play around with the ratios of super combos if you're using super combos. So I'm not against it. It does have its potential. Does seem fun, right? I wouldn't be surprised that within a certain deck that I would have like 2 Napa super combos and then 2 of the Cell super combos that we got, the green yellow ones, because they're both green, right? And then use it like with a green leader or something. That way it helps me splash in red and help me splash in yellow in case I need those colors. But I still get the same result. I combo, I play the super combo. I combo, I play the super combo. So since they're similar in what they do, but they have slightly different colors, is what makes them interchangeable, and opens up certain possibilities. An extra thing that I really liked, which is why I'm a big fan of the Cell super combo, other than the fact that I like the Cell character, is the fact that I can use the Cell super combo, like combo with it, and then the super combo plays itself onto the field. It's an evolved target. It's a Cell, and I can evolve it I can evolve the 7-drop Cell on top of it. Granted, it's 6 energy, right, to evolve, but that's nice because in the same turn, like on turn 6, for example, I can like swing with the leader, combo with the Cell, play the Cell super combo right onto the field, and then tap 6 and then drop the 7-drop Cell on top of it, and then wreck my opponent's hand. Where they're down to 3 cards, right? And then try to go for game after that. So I love that. I love the fact that that's an option, right? That I can just play 4 copies of the super combos and 4 copies of the 7-drop and tech that into any deck, where I don't have to do the whole Cell chain thing, right? And I don't have to have Android 17 and 18 to try to go up the chain. I could just skip that out and just play the 7-drop, play the super combo, and bang, there. Now I have the Cell chain, right? Or I have Cell. So a little spicy tech I'm giving y'all right here, right now. That's something I'm toying with, splashing that into green decks. Is that super combo with the 7-drop. So basically, it becomes the green equivalent to turning the tides. Android 17 turning tides. So that's what I'm doing with that. So right now I'm giving you some real nice spice right there from my personal, collection of spice that I'm playing with, that I'm looking into. But back to Unisons. We're talking about Unisons, not all this other stuff. But yeah, nice to see more people playing more than one Unison in their deck. The fact that we have an archetype that's revolving around it, which I am working on it. I got some ideas. I got some ideas of how to play it. So it's gonna be interesting. I definitely can't wait to start play testing it, right? Do some test hands and stuff, and do some gameplays with it and post it on the channel to show what the potential that the deck has. But I do like the fact that because it is an archetype that's revolving on using a lot of Unisons, that's further proving Bandai. Well, one, I'm ahead of the game. If you don't think Bandai is watching me and whatnot, then it just shows that I'm ahead of the game, and then I'm doing things before Bandai does it. That some people will see it as I don't influence Bandai, right, with the community and whatnot. Like, fine, let's say I don't. Let's say I don't have no influence on the game, but I'm damn sure, right? It's been proven time and time again that I am definitely doing stuff before it becomes popular, right? I do stuff when it's not popular, and then later on it becomes popular. So, you can say it's a coincidence. You can. The funny thing is like at the time I do stuff, people would be like, "Oh, this is stupid. This is dumb. This don't make no sense." But then later on, when it becomes popular and it becomes normal and everybody else is doing it, suddenly, people want to act like, "Oh, we've been doing this for a long time. This is nothing new. We've done this for, forever." Like, no, y'all didn't. I was the only one doing it. I was the only one playing that way. I was the only one using these types of cards, and then now everybody else using it. Shit. I want some credit. I was playing with Dirty Burst. Definitely was using Dirty Burst in my blue Hatchiac build, and I still do. And then now I'm starting to see more blue players playing Dirty Burst. It was always obviously a good card when it first came out and whatnot, but it was like very rarely used. And I saw for a long time that it wasn't used. People didn't have it in their sideboard. They definitely didn't have a main board. But now I'm seeing it more. Now I'm hearing deck profiles, but I'm hearing the card more than before. Because there was a time where it was like, what is it, Frost Death Beam or some shit like that. Like, I heard stuff like that a lot, and so that's the thing. I do pay attention to what goes on competitively and casually, right? I do pay attention to what goes on in the community. I do follow people on YouTube and whatnot and Facebook groups, and I do, so I'm aware of what's going on, what's the meta is and stuff like that. So that's why when I say like, yep, no one's doing this, I'm the only one who is currently doing this. And then later on when everybody's doing it, it's like, well, it's great that everybody's finally doing it. But then the irony within that time frame where everybody's doing it, there will be some people that they'll like to think that, this was always normal. This was not, that no way I was doing it before everybody else was. It's like, oh, well, that's a lie, but okay, whatever. I'm used to it. I'm used to not getting the credit that I deserve. I'm used to, me being ahead of the game, ahead of everybody else, doing stuff, and then later on people catch up to me and then act like they were they were by my side the whole time, right? Because imagine that it's like being in a foot race, right? You're running and I'm ahead of everybody, like, yeah, everybody, all these people are behind me, like they're like 12 feet behind me, I'm ahead of them, and then suddenly they start catching up, like, oh shit, they finally caught up. But then they act like they were by my side the whole entire time. Like, no, I was ahead of y'all and y'all just got caught up with me. But whatever, that's the weirdness of the world right now. But anyway, it's funny that I just seeing people using 3 Unisons in the deck, regardless if they're not, people don't have to play 12 Unisons, right? For me, it was always just the idea that it's like, playing 3 different Unisons was always the idea. It wasn't about the number, like 12. It's just that that's just how I build the decks. I mean, I build it works for me. 12 Unisons is not too much, right? For me, but all right, for other people, apparently it is. That's why I came up with the 9 Unison concept to so that way people who have a problem with playing 12 Unisons is like, well, here's a solution: 9 Unisons. 9 Unisons shouldn't be too much. Ironically, it still was, but whatever. But then to see people, it's like, okay, y'all like to play 6 Unisons in a deck, okay, or 4. And then I saw 8. I'm like, okay, 8, that's close to 9. That's close to 12. Close enough, right? Close enough. But it was just the irony, Because what's weird is, like, understand if you just be like, I don't think it's necessary to play a lot of Unisons, or I just don't like to. Fine. Everybody, to each their own. Do what you want to do. The problem to me is that complaining that I'm doing something. Like okay, it works for me. I have no problem playing a lot of Unisons. That shouldn't be a problem. Just like I don't have to use super combos all the time. I could play a deck without it or with it. It doesn't matter either way, right? For me, but it's for a lot of people that seems to be strange, right? They feel like it's disrespectful in a way. That's what it seems like. They feel it's disrespectful to not do something a certain way. It's like, no, you gotta play it this way, like everybody else is doing. It's like, no, I don't. I can play the way I play. It works for me. That's what matters. And proof of that it works, not necessarily that it works for me, because clearly it works for me. But what I mean is that what I do works. You just gotta give it a shot, give it a chance, right? What I do works is when people finally do the things that I've been doing. Right? One of the funniest things I used to see was that for a long time, for like over a year, close to 2 years, people still was playing like 10Ks and 15K battle cards. And I'm like, while I was playing 20 and trying to incorporate 30Ks, I'm playing, I'm playing, 15 and up, but definitely try to play 20Ks. Try to incorporate a lot of 20Ks into my decks and try to, put in some 30Ks. And this is way before like Dark Broly was even a thing. And I'm trying to get, the deck to be, trying to get it to the next level, trying to improve the deck, make it stronger, and not required to combo as much. But people were still playing like 10Ks and 15Ks at the time I was doing that. And it was just weird. It's like that, they had an issue with my decks. I'm like, it's so weird that y'all don't like my decks. But the thing is that my decks, especially if you just look power-wise, just the power, even if you don't like the build, whatever, you don't like the leader and what in the deck and the color, like that's irrelevant. At least the power of my battle cards are high compared to everybody else's battle cards. So while everybody else is playing 10Ks and 15K battle cards, I'm playing 20K battle cards, some 15K battle cards that more likely were free. That's the thing. Most of my 15Ks were for free. I played them for free. If I did have a 10K, it would probably be the Napa Super Combo. That's the only like 10K I'll be playing. But it serves multiple purposes. But that would be like the only 10K. But it's the fact that I can combine it with another battle card, make another battle card stronger, right? But it's like, other than that, most of my battle cards will be 15K and above. While most people are playing 10Ks, 5Ks, 15Ks. It's like, okay, y'all battle cards have very, very low power. Which is why y'all have to combo in order to make them basically strong. Trying to turn a 5K into a 10K so you can hit the leader. But your opponent could always combo 5K to out combo it, right? I'd rather put my opponent in a position where they always need to use super combos to try to out combo any of my attacks. Which is why I will play like a 20K or 15K, but typically 20K, because I always play with the mindset that my opponent is, even if my opponent's not yet awakened, I always play with them at their final form, which is when they're awakened. So I always like make sure that my power of my battle cards already is high enough to apply pressure when my opponent is awakened. So once my opponent has a 15k leader, I should definitely be swinging with 20ks and above, because a 20k versus a 15k leader, my opponent needs a 10k to out combo. So I keep that in mind. So that's the game theory. So it's like I was already ahead of the game with these types of things. Making sure that I had a whole bunch of 20ks and 30ks, so that way I can always make sure that whenever I swing, my opponent is the main one that's comboing, not me. I don't need to combo to try to deal damage or to even try to force my opponent into comboing. All I have to do is just swing with something strong, and they have to make that decision. Put a lot of pressure and responses on my opponent. Make it where my opponent has to think more than me. I should be thinking less. That's the effectiveness of the Dark Broly deck, where it's like, oh, cool. They finally made a deck that requires very little skill, very little thinking, is what I'm really trying to say. It requires the player to think very little. Because all you have to do is summon a 30k, swing at your opponent's leader, whether the leader's awakened or not, it's irrelevant. Let's say it is awakened. Your opponent needs 20 combo power, which means 2 super combos or 4 5k, 0 cost 5k combo power, just to out combo. That's just to out combo. Negate, block, power means nothing when your opponent can negate or block the attack. But when it comes to comboing, power does matter. And that's why you need to focus on that idea. Math is a great thing, especially in card games, right? Math is important. So is reading, right? Most card players don't read, right? But math is important. That's why it's like I was going with 20ks and 30ks. My new thing, might as well throw in some extra game theory right here. My new thing is 40ks or 35 to 40ks. There's been a couple of 35k battle cards printed that I've been trying to incorporate. Most of them are Zamasus. But anyway, 35ks, 40ks, most ultimates, well, pretty much every ultimate is essentially 40k. Technically, there's like 1 or 2 that are technically 50k because they have servant, right? Or they have an ability to like boost their attack. There is obviously a 25k ultimate red unison, but it has the ability to become 40k by its own effect. What's extra ironic, like I said, I'm trying to put 40ks into my decks, is that we have the what's his name, Super Saiyan 4 Broly Prismatic Burst, that black unison. That if you put 6 markers on it, he'll get 30k extra power on top of the fact that he's already at 10k, so he'll be at 40k. So the idea of just trying to have 40ks, so having him, and since he's black and he's generic, so you can splash him in any deck. For 6 energy, you can guarantee a 40k battle card, right? Or unison. And that's the thing, it's a unison, so it's immune to Godzilla Trunks, right? Charismatic and Frieza and anything of that nature, right? That's why it's so ironic that a lot of people aren't splashing that. Like, if anything, right? Try to splash that bad boy in there. It's been a while since I've used them, since I've splashed them. I've been trying to go more mono colors. I've been splashing him less, but I've been tempted, especially since I'm trying to do the whole 40k attack power thing. I'm definitely leaning back towards teching him again. So I gotta make sure that I do tech him into decks. Cause I was surprised when it first was announced and first came out. One, I was surprised he was a common, and second, that people aren't throwing him in every deck. Like, I expect every deck profile to mention him, to have him in it. It's like, why y'all not using this card? This is a good card. Even if you play it for 4 energy, right? That's a 30k. 4 energies for a 30k ain't bad. A 30k unison for 4 energy? That's amazing. Why wouldn't you want that? And it has a decent -1, which lets you KO battle card, if I'm right, or warp a battle card, one of the two, something like that. It's been a while since I looked at the card. But it also has a auto that you can use on your opponent's turn that can give you combo power, so to speak. It can let you power up your leader for 1 attack. So you have the potential of of using it to survive. an attack, or at least use it as hand control, which is the thing I'm going to try to lean towards more, is to take it into the deck, play it, and then try to use it as a form of hand control. Because the idea is that when your opponent attacks, you'll activate his auto, waste all his markers to power up your leader, which will force your opponent to have to combo more, will have to put in more if they want to try to hit you. But the funny thing is with them putting in more to try to hit you is that, well, all you have to do is try to out combo them, right? And you'll be using less cards in the process. So that's the mindset I have. The game theory is to try to force them to combo more in that situation, and you have to combo less, right? Obviously, which is always great. And then hopefully that will help reduce their hand size, so that way when it's your turn, because the idea is to try to survive that turn, for the clapback. On your turn, their hand size should be drastically smaller, that you can obviously take advantage of it. So that's another bit of game theory. I love thinking about the game, coming up with concepts that that's part of who I am, right? Part of being a player is I'm always trying to come up with new ways of doing things. Taking something that most people don't think, because most people don't even think of Bardak's. There's a Unison, 2-drop green Unison, like it's a Super Saiyan Bardic Fraternal Bonds or something, and most people don't see it as a hand control card, or a hand destruction card, right? Because the cool thing about the auto is that if you can use the auto on your turn, and if you use it right, you can potentially make your opponent, lose one or more cards, right? Because I call it a combo killer. Most of us do call it a combo killer effect. So when you attack and your opponent tries to combo, especially if they're trying to do an arrival play, you can be like, oh, get rid of that the multicolor super combo. Not gonna let you do no arrival play here. And then forces them to have to commit more. That's the word I've been trying to say for a long time. Commit more. Force them to commit more resources, commit more cards into whatever play they do that has to do with the combo phase. And then right there, that's hand control, right? Because you're forcing them to use more cards from their hands, and that's the thing. I try to combo less because I'm not trying to lose resources. I'm not a fan of comboing because that's just a waste of good cards. I have to charge cards for energy because I can't. Not every card in this game is free, obviously, right? So I have to charge energy to play cards, but I definitely, right? So I have to do that. But what I hate to do, and I've been working on mitigating and of doing, is comboing. I'll combo defensively, right? But I've definitely been mitigating comboing offensively. I'd rather be like, attack with a leader, no combo. Attack with Unison, no combo. Attack with a battle card, no combo. If we get a new card type, attack with that, no combo. That's what I prefer to say. And with Dark Broly, you definitely was able to say that. A lot of people who play Dark Broly love that they can swing and say no combo. Because that was the whole point. It's like, yeah, you don't have to combo. Your opponent has to combo. You know what I mean? Your opponent has to combo. And they need 20k combo power every time a 30k swings. Which is why I try to incorporate a lot of 30ks into my decks because of that. Because you're forcing out super combos out your opponent's hand in those types of situations. You're forcing out a whole bunch of 0-cost 5ks, right? So you're just forcing a lot of cards out your opponent's hand that went, during the combo phase. So playing anything that helps you further force more cards out their hand during the combo phase, it's a good strategy, right? You definitely want to be doing that. You definitely want to force your opponent into that type of situation, so that way their hands are smaller, so that when you go for game, they have less cards to out combo. That's what you always want. This video's gone long enough, and that's the end of the podcast.